Hello everyone and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. This week, an ambitious new plan to save a hidden treasure from the bottom of Lake Champlain.
There it is.
20 years ago, it was heralded as one of the most historic discoveries in Lake Champlain.
Now you'll know it. That's the stern. That's the rudder right there.
After years of searching, nautical archaeologist Art Cohn and his team had finally found the last of Benedict Arnold's warships from the famous Battle of Valcour during the Revolutionary War. The 54-foot Spitfire that sank the day after the battle was one of 8 gunboats that had outmaneuvered the larger Royal Fleet in October 1776. The British retreated back to Canada, giving the Americans another year to strengthen their forces, leading to a decisive win at Saratoga, and historians say setting the course of history. For decades, Art Cohn and other archaeologists were convinced the best way to preserve the gunboat was to leave it hidden in the deep, dark waters of Lake Champlain. But in recent years, they have reconsidered.
I totally changed the road I was on, changed the direction, and convinced myself that there was a better solution for the boat.
What's changed is years of new research that shows stormy weather can stir up the lake, even hundreds of feet underwater, threatening the shipwrecks on the bottom. A hurricane a few years back snapped off the top of the Spitfire's mast.
It's not benign. I thought at this depth, nothing, it was in a stasis. Nothing could happen to it. Well, that's just not so.
But perhaps the biggest threat is a modern-day invader. Millions of mussels that colonize on the shipwrecks. These zebra mussels can't go deep enough, but these quagga mussels can. And while they haven't been found in Lake Champlain, they are in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River. And like many invasive species, scientists fear it's only a matter of time before they reach the lake and the deep water shipwrecks.
I believe, and I have concluded, that quagga mussels will come here, quagga mussels will encrust this boat, and quagga mussels will rapidly cause it to destabilize and become a pile of timber on the bottom and ultimately be destroyed.
With quagga mussels now coming into Lake Champlain, they pose a new threat to this vessel that has not previously been there. It's also possible that these are increasing the deterioration rate of iron on these boats, and of course iron fastenings hold these wooden vessels together. So there's significant concern for the long-term preservation of this boat.
I've come up with a recommendation that's going to say, let's recover this boat.
Art Cohn spells out the way to do it in a new book that he unveiled at this talk at the old chapel on the former Air Force Base in Plattsburgh this past week. One of the Spitfire's sister ships, the Philadelphia, was raised from the lake bottom in 1935. It is the only ship in Benedict Arnold's fleet to be recovered, and is now on display at the Smithsonian in Washington. An exact replica is at the Maritime Museum in Vermont. Over the past century, there have been major advances in preserving shipwrecks. The lab at the Maritime Museum restored this anchor from the War of 1812, now on display at City Hall in Plattsburgh. Art Cohn recommends hiring oceanographic experts to raise the Spitfire, and then do the preservation work that could take a decade or more at a Maritime Museum lab in Burlington. Then he suggests returning the boat to the New York side of the lake to be put on display. The plan will take more than 20 years and could cost well over $40 million. That's why Cohn is giving talks like this one to gauge the reaction before sending the recommendation on to the U.S. Navy, which by law owns all sunken shipwrecks, including the Spitfire, and will ultimately make the final call.
I would like to think that in the book you get to follow the flow that we took, the issues we examined, the variables, and particularly the potential impact on the long-term integrity of this extraordinary object. We know what it looks like now. It's like out of a dream that it would be in this state of preservation after the career it had and after the almost 250 years on the bottom of Lake Champlain. To be the perfect, literally perfect archaeological time capsule in such a box of integrity is really extraordinary. The other unfortunate reality is we've now concluded and believe that there is an imminent threat to this vessel's stability and integrity, and that in a relatively short period of time, once quagga mussels get here, it's going to be a relatively rapid rise to colonizing these deep water shipwrecks, which today are not impacted by this. And therefore, on a positive note, we now can predict, I think, accurately what's going to happen. I talk about that. I lay out that case in the book. And we have a window of time to be proactive. So every way I look at it, obviously I'm a partisan. I want to see this boat saved for future generations.
And after several years of preservation on the Vermont side, you think the best location for a museum is in the Plattsburgh area on the New York side?
First things first, let's agree on a concept that the boat should be saved. It should be conserved in a place that we've recommended, and then it should be delivered to an exhibition facility on the New York side that can properly curate it, take care of it, and build on that story.